It is being called mayhem on the markets. And now all the eyes are on an escalating U.S.-China trade war.
In just a matter of hours, President Trump will unveil new trade tariffs. This comes after a flurry of on-again, off-again tariffs on goods imported from several countries, including Canada.
What if the real trigger for the market's 1,300-point collapse and America's crumbling alliances isn't what you think? Buried in the chaos of a White House press conference on March 14, 2025, there's a single, overlooked moment, a slip almost no one caught, that set the world on fire. This one quiet admission could explain why Canada's ditching the US, why Europe's boycotting us, and why $4 trillion vanished overnight. It's not just tariffs or tantrums. It's a secret weakness the headlines missed. Today, April 9th, 2025, the globe's reeling, but the truth's been hiding in plain sight. Stay with me, because we're about to uncover the spark that's torching an empire, and you won't believe how it's been ignored. Picture this, March 14th, 2025, the White House briefing room buzzing with anticipation. Caroline Leavitt, chief spokesperson for Donald Trump, steps up to steady a nation rattled by economic tremors and security leaks. 4 minutes later, the room's in shock, and not the good kind. It starts with a softball question. Why did Trump tell domestic automakers not to jack up prices amid his tariff threats? Leavitt's response is a masterclass in evasion. Well, that was a private conversation. I'm not sure if that comment was made or not. This wasn't a slip. It was a glaring red flag. No specifics, no policy meat, just a verbal shrug that left reporters and viewers grasping at air. The public didn't get clarity, they got chaos. Then the stakes skyrocket. A leaked military plan surfaces on a messaging app. Sensitive stuff that could endanger lives. Veterans and military families, already on edge, demand answers. Who's responsible? What's being done to stop it from happening again? Leavitt's reply is chillingly dismissive. The case is closed, and the president continues to have confidence in his national security advisor. 3 words. The case is closed. Torched any pretense of accountability. No investigation details, no reassurance, just a stone wall. The silence wasn't just awkward, it was a betrayal of trust, especially for those who've served. You could feel the room tense up as reporters scribbled furiously, knowing this was more than a gaffe. It was a signal of a White House adrift. But wait, it gets worse. A reporter zeroes in on the economy. What about retirees watching their 401ks tank because of stock market swings tied to tariff uncertainty? These are real people, fixed-income Americans sweating bullets as their savings evaporate. Leavitt's answer? A rehearsed dodge. The president takes those concerns very seriously. He's addressing them every day. Look at what he did in his first term. No plan, no numbers, no hope, just a tired script. Meanwhile, the Atlanta Federal Reserve's latest data paints a grim picture. GDP is shrinking at negative 3.7%. A brutal nosedive from a plus 3.9% projection just 8 weeks ago. This wasn't spin, it was delusion. Leavitt's words clashed with reality so hard you could hear the disconnect echoing across the country. The press conference didn't just falter, it imploded. Every dodged question, every vague platitude, piled onto a growing sense of dread. Leavitt tried to pivot, tossing out lines about saving taxpayers' money and unleashing energy might. But it was too late. The White House wasn't leading. It was flailing. Even Fox News, long a Trump ally, couldn't sugarcoat it. They urged her to communicate a deportation and get a grip. The damage was done. A nation desperate for stability got a front-row seat to incompetence. This wasn't a one-day blunder. It was a window into an administration crumbling under its own weight. Leavitt's performance laid bare a fatal flaw. Bold promises with no substance to back them up. The tension with allies like Canada and Europe was already simmering. Tariffs were choking trade, but this public fiasco screamed vulnerability. Nations don't trust a partner who can't answer basic questions. The US was bleeding credibility, and the world was taking notes. Economically, the stakes were sky high. Markets don't forgive uncertainty. Security-wise, the leak brushed off as closed, hinted at deeper rot. This was the moment the facade cracked, and the fallout was just beginning. Now let's peel back the economic carnage, because the numbers here are a gut punch. On March 14th, 2025, the Dow Jones took a 720-point hit in mere hours, a prelude to a jaw-dropping 1,300-point collapse after Trump doubled down on tariff threats. The S&P 500 shed 113 points. The Nasdaq plunged nearly 500. It was a financial massacre, the steepest in months, rivaling the 2020 pandemic crash. Why? Trump's tariff fixation was imploding spectacularly. His pitch was simple: slap taxes on foreign goods, protect American jobs, and bring prices down. The reality? A disaster. Tariffs on foreign cars? Experts say prices could spike by $4,000 to $10,000 per vehicle. No concrete plan to shield consumers, just chaos. Take the auto industry, the backbone of American manufacturing. Trump's floating 25% tariffs on parts from Mexico and Canada, key suppliers in a tightly knit supply chain. Here's the kicker: no car is 100% made in the USA. Every pickup truck rolling off a Detroit line has global DNA. Those tariffs don't save jobs, they torch them. Manufacturers are staring at higher costs, forced to either raise prices or lay off workers. Union leaders in Ohio and Michigan are livid. "This is a direct attack on the workers I stood in front of," one said. Meanwhile, consumer confidence is in the gutter. A Fox News poll dropped a bombshell. 46% of Americans disapprove of Trump's economic stewardship, with just 52% believing he's keeping his promises. Then there's the human cost, a deportation that lit a match under the chaos. A Maryland father, legally protected by a 2019 court ruling under Trump's own watch, was deported to El Salvador and thrown into a prison for gang members. Levitt's defense was a head-scratcher. Who does that judge work for? She tried tying it to MS-13, claiming they raped and strangled a 20-year-old autistic woman. A horrific crime, but irrelevant. The man had no record. The contradiction was stark. The ruling happened under Trump, not Biden, as J.D. Vance falsely claimed. This wasn't justice. It was a political stunt gone wrong, and it fed the narrative of a White House unmoored. Markets didn't just dip, they crashed. Investors saw a leadership void and bolted. Trump's third-term chatter didn't help. "It's not something we're thinking about," Levitt said, but the dodge only fueled speculation. This was policy by tantrum, not strategy. Inflation was already biting. Food, electronics, building materials, all up double digits. The Atlanta Fed's negative 3.8% GDP figure wasn't a blip. It was a warning siren. Even Fox News threw up its hands. "We need 100% buy-in over this bumpy period. Just communicate." But the White House couldn't, and the bill came due. This economic tailspin wasn't random. It was engineered. Trump's tariffs didn't just tank the U.S., they lit a fuse under global trade. Canada, hit by those auto part tariffs, saw fuel costs soar. Delta Airlines slashed profit forecasts by 50%, its stock cratering 14%. Europe, tangled in its own tariffs, spat with the U.S., watched consumer prices climb. This wasn't America first. It was America isolated. Allies weren't just annoyed, they were done. The deportation blunder only deepened the distrust, showing a government more interested in optics than order. The markets mirrored the mess. A $5 trillion wipeout in a day isn't a hiccup, it's a reckoning. The U.S. was pushing the world away, and the world was pushing back. Now shift north, to Canada, where the ground's shaking too. On March 17, 2025, Prime Minister Mark Carney dropped a bombshell. His first official trip as leader wasn't to Washington, but to Paris and London. This wasn't a vacation. It was a calculated middle finger to the U.S. For decades, Canada's been America's shadow. 80% of its exports flowed south, a lifeline tied to U.S. demand. But Trump's tariff roller coaster, 25% on auto parts, fuel costs spiking, changed the game. Carney's not waiting for another round of chaos. He's rewriting Canada's playbook, and Europe's the new star. Picture the scene. Carney shaking hands with Emmanuel Macron in Paris, then Keir Starmer in London, locking in trade and security pacts. Canada's gunning for a 50% jump in non-US trade by 2025, and the EU's all in. Why? Stability. The EU's been burned. Russia cut off 40% of its gas after Ukraine, and US LNG exports soared 50% in 2023 to plug the gap. But Trump's America First volatility, hinting at LNG price hikes, made Europe nervous. Enter Canada, with the LNG Canada project in British Columbia, set to pump out 1.8 billion cubic feet of natural gas daily by 2025. Expandable to double that. Add solar and wind, projected to hit 30% of Canada's power grid by 2030. And you've got a nation stepping up as an energy titan. This isn't just about trade, it's defiance. Carney's message is blunt. Canada's done being America's punching bag. He's betting on Europe's reliability over US unpredictability. The EU's trade with Canada's already up 66% since the 2017 CETA deal. Exports surged 46%. Now, with Trump's tariffs strangling North American supply chains, Canada's eyeing Asia too, Japan and China, for oil and LNG deals. Defense? Sweden's in talks to replace US suppliers. This is a strategic pivot, not a side hustle. Carney's building an energy superpower, and the US isn't invited to the party. This is a diplomatic gut punch with teeth. The US-Canada bond, once rock solid, is fracturing under Trump's chaos. Canada's not just diversifying, it's declaring independence from a neighbor it can't trust. Europe's a perfect fit. The EU needs energy, Canada's got it, and both crave stability the US can't offer. The tension's seismic. It's redrawing alliances. The US is losing its northern anchor, and Canada's gaining leverage. If Trump doubles down, he risks turning a trade spat into a full-blown rupture. The numbers back it. Canada's clean energy push could create thousands of jobs while the US flounders. This isn't a retreat, it's a power play. Across the Atlantic, Europe had enough too. Trump's latest salvo, 200% tariffs on EU wines and champagne, was retaliation for their 50% whiskey tax. Sounds tough, right? Except the US doesn't make champagne. This wasn't a win. It was a self-inflicted wound. Americans just pay more for their Bordeaux, while Europe's response was swift and savage. Google Trends lit up. Boycott USA spiked in Canada, France, Germany, and Italy. Tourism's imploding. European and Canadian travelers are scrapping US trips. Exports? US businesses are hemorrhaging as global suppliers dodge American goods to sidestep trade risks. The fallout's brutal. Tech giants like Apple, Nvidia, and Tesla, hooked on global chains, got hammered. Apple's stock tanked 6.3%, vaporizing $160 billion in value. The Nasdaq, tech's heartbeat, plunged 4%. Banks weren't spared. JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America each dropped over 5%, spooked by recession fears. Retail? Walmart lost 12%, a $56 billion hit, as tariff-driven inflation crushed margins. This wasn't a market hiccup. It was a $4 trillion overnight wipeout. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen didn't mince words. A stupid blow to the global supply chain. Ontario's Doug Ford piled on. A direct attack on our workers. Europe's not just mad, it's mobilizing. Canada's cutting US imports, pivoting to Sweden for defense tech, and eyeing Asia for trade. The boycott's a weapon, and it's drawing blood. Tourism's down double digits. Think empty hotels in New York and Miami. Exports like whiskey and tech are piling up unsold. Europe's leaning on Canada's LNG and renewables, while the US flails. This is retaliation with a purpose. Punish America's arrogance and build a new order without it. This isn't a tantrum. It's a tectonic shift. The US-Europe tensions hit a breaking point, and Trump's tariffs lit the fuse. Europe's not just boycotting goods, it's boycotting reliance on an unstable partner. Canada's in lockstep, amplifying the pressure. The numbers scream crisis. $4 trillion gone in a day isn't noise, it's a signal. The US assumed it could dictate terms. Instead, it sparked a rebellion. Allies aren't begging for deals. They're building alternatives. This trade war's not just costing dollars, it's costing dominance. Step back, and the view's apocalyptic. Trump mused about a third term. "It's not really something we're thinking about," Leavitt said, but the smirk didn't deny it. Flirting with constitutional overreach on live TV? That's a trust shredder. Then he went off script. "Greenland should be ours. The Panama Canal too." Denmark's PM called it absurd. Panama bristled. Add Elon Musk's Starlink snagging a Verizon deal, and you've got a billionaire playing unelected VP. This isn't governance, it's a circus. The economy's the real victim. Inflation's a monster. Food up 15%, electronics 20%, building materials through the roof. Experts like economist Mark Zandi say Trump's tariffs drove raw material costs skyward, not down. His claims of driving down inflation are a fantasy. The data's a nightmare. The S&P 500's 5.7% drop was its worst since 2020. Tech's bleeding. Apple, Nvidia, Tesla all down. Airlines like Delta, hit by Canadian tariff fallout, saw stocks crash 14%. Banks and retail followed. This isn't a storm, it's a reckoning. Recession's not a question, it's a forecast. Globally, the US is a pariah. Canada's energy rise, Europe's boycott, a trade war with no endgame. It's self-destruction. Trump's Greenland and Panama Canal rants didn't just rile allies. They exposed desperation. America's fighting itself, not its rivals, and $4 trillion vanishing overnight proves it. The Fox News poll, 56% disapproval, shows even his base is wavering. The White House staged an outdoor briefing to flex control. Instead, it bared weakness. This is collapse in slow motion. The US's tension with the world mirrors its internal rot. Trump's policies promised greatness. They've delivered isolation. Canada and Europe aren't just drifting. They're sprinting away, building futures without the US. The numbers don't lie. $4 trillion gone isn't a fluke, it's a verdict. Power's slipping, and allies are cashing out. If legal limits are shrugged off, if trade wars trump reason, where does this end? The empire's not just cracking, it's crumbling, and the world's moving on. Where does this leave us? The US economy's on life support. Canada's forging a new path, and Europe's drawing battle lines. The world's not waiting for America to wake up. This isn't the end. It's the prelude to something bigger. Hit subscribe, because the next chapter could rewrite everything. Verizon deal, and you've got a billionaire playing unelected VP. This isn't governance, it's a circus. The economy's the real victim. Inflation's a monster. Food up 15%, electronics 20%, building materials through the roof. Experts like economist Mark Zandi say Trump's tariffs drove raw material costs skyward, not down. His claims of driving down inflation are a fantasy. The data's a nightmare. The S&P 500's 5.7% drop was its worst since 2020. Tech's bleeding. Apple, Nvidia, Tesla all down. Airlines like Delta, hit by Canadian tariff fallout, saw stocks crash 14%. Banks and retail followed. This isn't a storm, it's a reckoning. Recession's not a question, it's a forecast. Globally, the US is a pariah. Canada's energy rise, Europe's boycott, a trade war with no endgame. It's self-destruction. Trump's Greenland and Panama Canal rants didn't just rile allies. They exposed desperation. America's fighting itself, not its rivals, and $4 trillion vanishing overnight proves it. The Fox News poll, 56% disapproval, shows even his base is wavering. The White House staged an outdoor briefing to flex control. Instead, it bared weakness. This is collapse in slow motion. The US's tension with the world mirrors its internal rot. Trump's policies promised greatness. They've delivered isolation. Canada and Europe aren't just drifting. They're sprinting away, building futures without the US. The numbers don't lie. $4 trillion gone isn't a fluke, it's a verdict. Power's slipping, and allies are cashing out. If legal limits are shrugged off, if trade wars trump reason, where does this end? The empire's not just cracking, it's crumbling, and the world's moving on. Where does this leave us? The US economy's on life support. Canada's forging a new path, and Europe's drawing battle lines. The world's not waiting for America to wake up. This isn't the end. It's the prelude to something bigger. Hit subscribe, because the next chapter could rewrite everything.